And the story starts with Shin Yuan, who is the protagonist of the story, stepped out of a luxurious sports car that had just pulled over to the side of the road. The sight of him left the bystanders in shock. Two young women nearby quickly took out their phones and started snapping photos. Look, the rich kid from that prestigious university just swapped his supercar for another one of them whispered excitedly. Their attention soon shifted to the stunning woman stepping out of the car. After Shin, she was Zhou, his current girlfriend. The moment she appeared, a group of young men standing nearby broke into whispers, their faces turning red with admiration and jealousy. Unbelievable, Shin barely stepped into college and he's already dating a second-year goddess from the flight attendant class, one of them muttered as Shin and Zhu walked away. A conversation took place on the balcony of a nearby building. One of the girls observing the scene turned to her friend. Do you think I still have a chance with Shin? She asked eagerly. Her friend, after a moment of thought, nodded. Of course, you never know. However, the lavish spendthrift lifestyle Shin enjoyed, the one that so many envied, came to a crashing end in his junior year of college. A disaster struck his family, causing their 3 travel agencies to go bankrupt, leaving them buried under millions in debt. Now standing in front of a dormitory door, Shin asked his friend Lao Zhang, "Want to go to the internet cafe and play some games?" Lao Zhang, looking disinterested, shrugged. "We're not that close for me to tag along." Another guy sitting beside Zhang smirked. "Do you still think you're that rich kid from before, the one who could call and dismiss us at will?" Stunned by their words, Shin found himself on the rooftop later that evening, lost in thought. One by one his so-called friends had drifted away, avoiding him like the plague. His parents and sister had been forced to move into a cramped rented apartment. Once accustomed to extravagant outings, he now had to settle back into the dormitory with everything crumbling around him. He wondered if he could even live a decent life. When he was walking down the street, he noticed Zhu waiting for him by the roadside. As he approached, she looked at him solemnly. "Let's not meet anymore in the future," she said. "I hope you find someone who understands you better." Shin was stunned, his eyes widening. "We've been together for 3 years and you're just dropping me like that? Are you really that heartless?" Zhou met his gaze and scoffed. "You talk like we were warriors of true love, and stop calling me Ting. It's so outdated." With that, she turned and walked towards a luxury car parked nearby. As she started to open the door, Shin stopped her. "What more do you want?" she asked, irritation evident in her voice. "Give back the designer bags I bought you," Shin demanded. Frustrated, Zhou snapped. "I stuck with you for 3 years and all you gave me were a few lousy bags. Now you want them back after breaking up with me?" Before the argument could escalate, the man inside the car spoke up. "Ting, get in. This isn't worth getting angry over." Then turning to Shin, he asked with a smirk, "Where are you headed? Want a lift?" Shin clenched his fists. She had just called his affectionate nickname outdated, yet this older man could use it. Holding back his frustration, he forced a smile. "No need. My place is just a few steps away," he replied coolly. Then leaning towards the car window, he added, "Take good care of our dear Zhou. She's quite the naughty one in bed." Zhou's face turned red with embarrassment while the older man's expression darkened. Without another word, he drove off, leaving Shin staring at the sky. Covering his face with one hand, he sighed. "I hope her choice leads her to a perfect life." Just then a translucent system window appeared before him. Perfect Life System initializing. The interface displayed Shin's personal details, his name, age, height, wealth and skills. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he read through the information. "Am I hallucinating?" he muttered. The system responded, providing an overview of its functions. It was a task-based system with time-limited missions. For example, spending money on a suitably aged woman with an affinity level above 60 would earn her admiration. In return, the money spent would be refunded threefold. If her affinity increased by 3 points during the spending, the refund would be doubled. Still struggling to believe it, Shin was startled by a familiar voice behind him. "Shin, it's over. Don't dwell on it. You'll find a better love someday." Turning around, he saw Professor Li Xiao, a beautiful woman who taught at his university. Above her head, a faint mark displayed an affinity level of 65. Realizing that the system wasn't a hallucination, Shin nervously reassured her. "I'm fine." Professor Li nodded. "Submit your scholarship documents soon. It's the least I can do to help." Shin hesitated before replying. "This few thousand yuan is nothing compared to my family's debts. Someone else might need it more." She acknowledged his decision with a small smile and offered, "If you ever need help, you can always come to me." As she turned to leave, Shin realized she met the system's criteria. This was his chance to test it. He reached out and gently grabbed her hand. "Professor Li, let me buy you a milk tea as a token of gratitude." She politely refused, but Shin handed her a Can of milk tea anyway. She accepted it with a small nod of thanks. Checking his system balance, Shin saw that the 6 yuan he spent had turned into 18 yuan. His balance had increased from 87 yuan to 99 yuan. A thought crossed his mind. As long as Professor Li's affinity remained above 60, he could keep spending on her and earning rewards. This might be his way out of debt, maybe even a path to becoming richer than before, but his current balance of 99 yuan was too little. He needed startup capital and the right people to spend on. After checking his bank accounts, he realized he had a total of 49,000 yuan, including loans and savings. To test the system further, he purchased a designer handbag worth 39,000 yuan and went directly to Professor Li's house. When she opened the door, she looked surprised. Shin, what are you doing here? Sorry for disturbing you, Professor. I just wanted to give you this handbag as a small token of appreciation for all you've done for me. She hesitated. This bag looks expensive. I can't accept it. Shin quickly reassured her. It's just 200 yuan. You know my family's situation. How could I possibly afford anything too expensive? After a moment of reluctance, she accepted it. Just then she smelled something burning. Her stir-fry was on the verge of charring. Rushing back inside, she called over her shoulder, "Have you eaten? If not, stay for dinner." Shin considered the opportunity. Getting closer to her meant increasing affinity, which meant more rewards. As he was about to accept, a sharp voice interrupted. "What are you doing?" A young woman in a flight attendant uniform stood at the doorway. It was Professor Li's younger sister, Li Meng. Shin immediately sensed hostility from her. Feeling uneasy, he quickly excused himself. "Actually, I already ate. I should head back to my dorm. See you at college, Professor." As he walked down the street, he pondered his next move. Spending on Professor Li might be difficult now. He needed to find someone else. Just as he was deep in thought, he bumped into someone. Shin recognized Lao Huang. "What happened to you?" Shin asked, surprised. Huang's hands trembled as he spoke, his face glistening with cold sweat. Seeing his distress, Shin asked him what had happened. Huang, still shaken, revealed that his goddess Fang Minhui had gone to the movies with the infamous Li Zhangping. Shun, realizing that Huang was his roommate, recalled something upon hearing Minhui's name. She was a student from the International Trade Department, an unattainable goddess, someone he had never interacted with before. They had never spoken in the past, and their worlds had remained separate. Casually, Shun responded to Huang, though he wasn't truly listening, his gaze wandering elsewhere. Huang's face turned pale as he asked Shun what that look on his face meant. He suspected Shun was making fun of him. Shun, however, ignored the remark and instead pointed towards someone in the distance. Huang turned to look and saw two beautiful and elegant women approaching, sipping on milk tea. The girl with brown hair was none other than Minhui. His eyes sparkled as he leaned toward Shen, whispering that she was the very girl who had gone to the movies with Li Zhangping. Despite the situation, he expressed happiness that they had not gone to a hotel, which meant he still had a chance. Observing his reaction, Shin thought to himself that pursuing a woman had stripped Huang of his dignity. Then Shin suddenly noticed an affinity mark above Minhui's head, displaying a level of 72. He was surprised, thinking that Minhui had principles even higher than Professor Li's. As Minhui and her friend walked past them, the woman beside Minhui turned to her and asked if she had heard that Shin's girlfriend had recently dumped him. Upon hearing this, Minhui showed a moment of concern while continuing to walk. The black-haired woman beside Minhui then spoke, reminding her that during their basic training at the beginning of the semester, she should not have encouraged Minhui to get close to Shun or even buy him drinks. She added that rich guys often had bad attitudes and were understandably arrogant when they had money. However, even after Shin's family had gone bankrupt, he was still as cocky as ever. Anyone would have dumped him. Minhui nodded in agreement, acknowledging that it was a good thing they had never been together, otherwise she would have wasted 3 years of her youth. Shin, meanwhile, observed Minhui's affinity level fluctuating above her head. He realized that he could not simply sit back and do nothing. Placing a hand on Huang's shoulder, he asked him whether he would be bothered if he ended up with Minhui. Huang, with a hesitant expression, admitted that he had no chance with her anyway. He then asked Shun if he still saw himself as a wealthy man and added that he did not mind as long as Minhui was not with Li Zhangping. Hearing this, Shun made a sudden decision. He ran toward Minhui, prompting Huang to grow anxious. As Shin approached, he called out to Minhui. However, before he could reach her, the black-haired woman stepped in between them. Shin ignored her and instead addressed Minhui directly, asking if she was free the next day. He told her that he had booked a table at Xing Sushi and invited her to join him. Minhui's face flushed at Shun's unexpected dinner invitation. The black-haired woman interjected, pointing out that Shing Sushi was an extremely expensive Japanese restaurant where the minimum spend per person was 1,000 yuan. She asked Shun if he even had that kind of money. Shin unfazed smiled slightly and explained that he wanted to pick out a birthday gift for his sister and asked Min Hui if she could assist him after their dinner. He told her to let him know by noon the next day before walking away. As Shin departed, Min Hui turned to her friend, expressing her concerns about having watched a movie with Li Jianping and now accepting a dinner invitation from Shun. Her friend dismissed the concern's reasoning that there was nothing wrong with enjoying top-notch Japanese food. She admitted that while Shun was somewhat arrogant, he was at least handsome. In contrast, Li Jianping only had his family's wealth. If Shin's family recovered financially, he would easily surpass Li Jianping. She assured Min Hui that it was just dinner and a stroll, nothing serious. With that, Min Hui agreed to go. The following evening, Shun and Min Hui arrived at the restaurant and took their seats. As their food was served, Min Hui hesitated, looking at the lavish spread before them. She remarked that since Shun's family was going through financial difficulties, he did not need to spend so extravagantly. Shun reassured her with a smile, saying that the food was worth every yuan. Shin noted that it had been 2 months since he had last seen Min Hui. He reminded himself to stay composed. Suddenly, Min Hui asked him directly why he had invited her to dinner. Was it really just to help him pick out a gift for his sister? Shun's face reddened at her question. He denied it and admitted that he had always wanted to invite her but never found the right moment. Upon hearing this, Min Hui's affinity value began to drop. Shun quickly realized she was not satisfied with his response, which was why her affinity level was declining. Trying to salvage the situation, he reminded her that during their basic training she had often bought him drinks and that they used to chat on WeChat at night. He told her that he still remembered those moments. Min Hui's face turned red as she blushed, feeling shy at his words. Her affinity level immediately began to rise again. Observing her reaction, Shin felt his heart race but forced himself to remain calm. After finishing their meal, Shun went to the bill counter. The cashier informed him that their total after applying a discount was 2,700 yuan. He thanked them and paid via phone. As they walked along the street afterward, Min Hui trailed behind Shin, lost in thought. She considered how her monthly budget was only 3,000 yuan, and yet this one meal had cost almost an entire month's worth of expenses. She then recalled how Li Jianping, despite his wealth, had suggested they eat at the school cafeteria when they went to the movies, claiming they could dine out next time. Even though his family was rich, he was incredibly stingy. Meanwhile, Shin noticed a reward notification. The system showed that because Min Hui's affinity level had increased, the money he had spent had been refunded. Furthermore, since her affinity level had risen by 3 points, the refunded amount had doubled. Shun marveled at the feeling of earning 10,000 yuan from just one meal. Min Hui, growing fonder of Shun, found herself gazing at him more frequently. She took his hand and gently tugged him, reminding him that they still had to buy a gift for his sister. As they entered the shopping mall, an old man accompanied by Zhou, Shun's ex-girlfriend, noticed him. Zhou's expression darkened as she recognized Shin, thinking bitterly that he had just broken up with her yesterday and was already out with someone new. The old man looked at Shin with disgust, wondering how a poor student could afford to shop in such an upscale place. He, on the other hand, had struggled to buy numerous designer bags just to impress Zhou, and yet despite his debts, Shin still had a beautiful woman by his side. This realization frustrated him even more. Seeing them approach, Shin suggested to Min Hui that they visit another store. However, the old man walked up to them and mockingly suggested they go inside together, remarking that window shopping cost nothing. Zhou, stepping closer to Min Hui, warned her not to be fooled by Shun. Min Hui, worried by Zhou's words, instinctively stepped behind Shin. Shin, addressing Zhou, asked her directly whom he had supposedly deceived. The old man scoffed and chastised Shin for speaking that way to Zhou, reminding him that she was his ex now. He then smugly pointed out that everyone knew about Shin's family's debts and that there was no need to pretend to be rich. Annoyed by their arrogance, Shin was suddenly presented with a task by the system: spend money on someone with an affinity level above 60 and receive a refund if others' negative emotions increased. For every 5 points of negative emotion, the refunded amount would double. Seeing that both the old man and Zhou had negative affinity values, Shin realized this was the perfect opportunity to embarrass them. Taking Min Hui's hand, he confidently suggested they continue shopping. The scene shifted to a luxury boutique where 2 employees chatted, one instructing the other to handle Mr. Shin, a former regular. only to be met with scorn as the colleague dismissed him as a bankrupt ex-rich man, recalling how a fake socialite had once wasted her time. Meanwhile, Zhou entered and began selecting an expensive handbag, asking an older man to pay for it. Noticing her, the same employee who had scoffed at Shin suddenly showed great interest in Zhou, prompting resentment from another worker who felt it unfair that she always got the difficult non-buying customers. The staff started showcasing their latest designs to Zhou, complimenting her taste and suggesting a pair of stylish chain dolls, noting the set would total 100,000 yuan. While Zhou browsed, Shin arrived with Minhui looking for a gift for his sister. Though Minhui suggested some pretty and youthful bags, the store clerk showed no interest and only mentioned the price over 50,000 yuan with a dismissive tone. Nearby, the old man with Zhou grew uneasy as she insisted he buy her the full set to impress Shun. Whispering to him to prove his worth as her boyfriend, he panicked, realizing he could not afford it. Shin then surprised everyone by declaring he would purchase both chosen bags and accessories, shocking even Minhui and the disinterested clerk who thought he was broke. The total cost came to 131,000 yuan, which Shin paid confidently, revealing a recent refund left him with exactly that amount. The saleswoman was stunned, realizing Shun was more charming and generous than she expected. Zhou, irritated, questioned where Shin got the money, and the old man nervously speculated it was a loan. Shin, smirking, challenged him to buy another bag for Zhou, mocking his supposed wealth and luxury car. Caught in his lie, the old man pretended to get an urgent call and quickly left, angering Zhou. She gave Shin a cold farewell, while Shin noted that her negative affinity had reached the system's goal. Turning to Minhui, he offered her one of the designer bags as an apology for the earlier unpleasantness. She hesitated, but he insisted it was just a bag. He then handed her the second one, initially meant for his sister, but confessed he was not sure she would like it and believed Minhui would. Internally, he thought his sister would scold him for splurging and tell their parents, and that the bags were meant for Minhui from the start. Minhui, overwhelmed, questioned if Shin saw her as a gold digger, but he urged her to accept them. As she did, a system notification appeared. The task was complete, 15 negative emotion points were tripled, and with the refund multiplier for opposite gender expenses, his account was credited sixfold, bringing his balance to 786,000 yuan. Shin considered Minhui his money tree now and knew he had to take good care of her and couldn't let her affection level drop again like before. So, wanting to keep things flowing naturally, Shin suggested they head back to college since it was getting late. And although he was itching to get closer to her, he reminded himself that relationships shouldn't be rushed. The scene shifted to the boys' dormitory, where a group of male students came down the stairs chatting. One of them remarked that unlike Li Jiangping, Shin didn't suggest going to a hotel, even though it was obvious he'd thought about it. And it was revealed that the guy in the hoodie was Jiangping, who walked down with a smug smile on his face. One of his friends, a guy with glasses, brought up celebrating and asked Jiangping to treat them to dinner, but insisted it shouldn't be at a cheap place. And spotting Shin coming up the stairs, Jiangping raised his voice and announced that they should invite the whole class and throw a huge party. Shin, ignoring the commotion, went straight to his room, where his roommate was seated on a chair with his headset on. He took it off and with an intense look asked Shin if he'd heard about Jiangping's little stunt. Apparently, after watching a movie with Minhui, Jiangping wanted the entire school to know about it, clearly a move aimed at Shin. Shin assured his friend that Minhui wouldn't be with Jiangping, but his friend, visibly annoyed, accused Shin of showing off since Minhui went to the movies with Jiangping last night and had refused to go out with Shin today, which had to mean something. Shin said nothing, calmly sitting on the bed while listening. He checked his bank balance and made up his mind to visit home the next day. Back at Shen Yuan's house, his uncle Yaoda was sitting on the sofa when Shin arrived. His father was there too and asked Shin to wait a moment as he and Yaoda were in the middle of a discussion. Shin went to his room but could overhear the conversation. His father was asking for more time to repay a debt, hoping that after a payment for a batch of goods came through they could at least pay part of it. Yaoda, however, rejected the offer and wanted the full amount soon to cover his expenses. Shin's mother, overhearing this, angrily confronted Yaoda and reminded him that when he wanted to open a car wash and didn't have money, they lent him 300,000 yuan without pressure, but now after lending him 200,000 yuan, he was pressuring them again. And again, Shin's father tried to keep the peace, saying his brother had his own difficulties, but his wife retorted that she had checked and Yaoda had no urgent expenses. With a disdainful tone, Yaoda said paying back debts was only natural and that he was being polite because they were family. If they weren't, they'd see how aggressive collection really looked. His mother was shocked by his words and asked if he intended to collect violently and called him ungrateful for forgetting the help they gave him before. Shun's father calmed her and asked if she still had any gold jewelry since they needed to sell it to settle the debt and could buy more later. His mother, saddened, handed over her jewelry box and said all the pieces Shun's father had given her were there, and no matter how hard things got she'd never sold them except for 2 gold rings that were lost during a move. Shun, listening to this, felt guilty and remembered how during his first year of college, he secretly took those rings to buy a designer bag for Zhou and thought to himself what a lousy kid he was back then. Suddenly Shun burst into the room and told his parents he had money. They were stunned and his father asked if he was joking. Shun insisted he really had it and told him to check for the transfer. Seeing the bank notification, his parents were shocked and his father asked where he got that much money. Hesitant, Shun lied and claimed he had invested part of his allowance into cryptocurrency with a friend and just recently cashed it out for a big return. Internally, he thought he couldn't tell them the real reason. The system. His parents, overjoyed, quickly decided to pay Yauda back, and Shin's mother asked Yauda to leave and bluntly told him that from now on it was better if their families stayed out of each other's affairs. Yauda tried to call her back, but she glared at him and shut the door. Outside, Yauda was baffled and thought Shin's family was struggling under massive debt. So how could they pay so quickly? He wondered if they had a new business or some new source of income, then shook off the thought and left. Back inside, Shin received a system notification congratulating him for completing the first debt payment objective and granting a reward of the amount paid in debt refunded ×2 along with a bonus of 1 million yuan for exclusive car expenses. Shin checked his bank account and saw 400,000 yuan refunded and 1 million added, making a total of 2,186,000 yuan. He was thrilled, and even though 1 million was reserved for a car, his net worth had surpassed 1 million. He never expected that helping his family would come with such a huge reward. Still, he knew settling all the family debt would take time, and even if he gave the entire million to his dad, it wouldn't be enough. It was better to use the capital to make more money. He offered his dad another 200,000 yuan, saying he hadn't withdrawn it yet. His mother said to keep it for now since the other debts weren't urgent, but his father hesitated and eventually accepted 50,000 yuan. The way his father hesitated reminded Shun of how he used to act when asking for pocket money as a child. Later, while walking near his apartment, Shin ran into Professor Lee and greeted her. He asked if she was free for dinner that night, wanting to return the favor from last time, but before he could finish, he noticed someone glaring at him. It was Professor Lee's sister. Feeling awkward, Shin quickly changed course, saying he had something to do, and suggested they postpone. Her sister scoffed, telling Lee she had warned her that Shun had ulterior motives. Professor Lee defended him, saying it was just dinner, and even if he did have intentions, she wouldn't accept them. As Shun walked away, he felt the heat of the sun and recalled how nice it was to ride in a car with the AC on, gently stroking Zhou's hair. Remembering the car fund, he thought not using it would be disrespecting the great system. He messaged Manhwa asking if she was free that afternoon to help him look at cars. Manhwa said she was free and would join him. Her roommate teased her with a grin and asked if they'd be returning to the dorm that night. Manhwa, trying to ignore her teasing, told her not to talk nonsense, they weren't together. Her friend just smiled knowingly, saying Manhwa was lucky to have found someone rich and handsome. An hour later, Shen and Manhwa arrived at a car dealership and a staff member approached them and asked what model they were interested in. He then recognized Manhwa. It was Qin, her senior from high school, who had once chased after her. Trying to act familiar, Qin asked who Shun was, and Manhwa introduced him as her classmate. Shun pointed to the M9 and asked about it. Qin led them over, noting to himself that the basic M9 started at 500,000 yuan and went over 600,000 with all fees. Seeing Shen's plain clothing, Qin assumed he was just trying to show off. Still captivated by Manhwa's looks, Qin asked her if she was free that evening to catch up, and Manhwa awkwardly declined, saying she had plans. Shun, sitting in the car, asked for a test drive, and Qin, annoyed, smiled and said the test car was out with his boss. Shun calmly thinks that he'd seen the M9 at the entrance. If Qin couldn't arrange it, he should get someone who could. Shun then requested another salesperson, and soon a stunningly elegant woman appeared, introducing herself as Chan Na, a sales consultant. And Shun was momentarily stunned by her beauty. One of the workers asked Qin why he had let Chan Na handle Shun if he was originally his client. And Qin replied indifferently that he wasn't in the mood to organize things and didn't want to waste Chan Na's time. Just then, a student walked in expressing interest in buying an M9 and test driving it, which the worker found absurd. But when he questioned what if the guy actually bought it, Chin scoffed, saying to let him, just another poor guy showing off with a pretty girl. Meanwhile, Chun Na was professionally explaining the car's features to Shan, who was impressed, thinking her looks and figure could rival Minhue's, though he recalled how salesgirls in the auto industry were rumored to make deals with male clients to hit targets. When she asked if he knew the model specs, Shun instead inquired if they had any units available, stating he wanted to take the car home that day, which surprised Chan Na, as most clients took several visits to decide, and she wondered why Chin had given up on such a promising customer. She informed him that although their branch had none in stock, another branch had one due to a cancelled order, and they could deliver it within a week. Later, when Chin asked how it went, Chun calmly told him Shun had bought the car, shocking a colleague, though Chin dismissed it, claiming Shin would disappear at payment time. But Chan corrected him, saying Shun was paying in cash, prompting Chin's co-worker to scold him for losing the sale. With a smile, Chan told Shin to contact her if he needed anything, and asked if he wanted a ride, but Min Hui, taking Shin's hand, replied that they'd take a taxi, and Chun realized she may have annoyed his girlfriend by being too attentive. Outside, Shin asked Min Hui if she was upset or jealous, and though she denied it, he pointed out her expression said otherwise, reassuring her it was just a sales interaction. Min Hui awkwardly expressed doubt, having seen them chatting and checking each other's posts, but Shin explained it was a habit and promised not to do it again. She wondered why she felt jealous when they weren't even officially dating, then considered how attractive Shun's spending made him to other women, resolving to find a way to keep him close. Seeing her reaction, Shin gently promised it wouldn't happen again and suggested they eat, then shop for a gift. She reminded him he'd already bought her 2 bags yesterday, but worried inwardly that he'd see her as a gold digger. Shin brushed it off, saying it was normal for girls to have several bags, one for each day of the week, though he secretly thought spending on girls gave him triple refunds from the system, making it all worthwhile. At the restaurant, he asked if she wanted a hot or cold drink, and distracted, she shyly chose cold, while Shin noticed her odd expression and wondered what she was thinking, remembering his last time with Zhou had been 2 months ago, and deciding to deepen the misunderstanding a bit more. 3 hours later, Min Hui had a 12,000 yuan watch, a 20,000 yuan bracelet, and a 50,000 yuan bag, raising Shin's affinity with her to 81, and she thought about how well he treated her. Over 80,000 yuan in one day, 140,000 in 2. Shin received a 252,000 yuan deposit notification, smiling to himself at the system's reliable double refund, having given 50,000 to his dad and 50,000 for the car and gotten it all back, and even after subtracting the car's nearly 600,000 yuan payment, he still had over 1.6 million yuan left. He asked Min Hui if she wanted to skip returning to the dorm that night, and she agreed. At the hotel, half an hour later, Shun was bathing while Min Hui lay on the bed with her phone, hesitating over how to reply to her friend Chen Ling, who asked why she hadn't come back to the dorm, embarrassed to admit she was with Shun. When Shin approached and asked if she was ready, her response led to intimacy between them. And kids, please close your eyes, and other, please subscribe to our channel to get more interesting manhwa recaps on our channel. Half an hour later, Min Hui lay in Shen's arms. Guy, don't expect hours of battle from our MC, as he also should had some strength in his weapon. She thinks it wasn't as scary as Chen Ling said, while Shun, eyes dark, reflected on how unexpectedly well Min Hui handled everything. Though tired, when Min Hui asked for another round, he said to let him rest a bit. But she whispered she couldn't wait any longer. Early the next morning, just as Shin returned to the dorm, he sat down in a chair and began to think. The system also offered refunds for paying off debts. Between various loan apps and credit cards, he owed a total of 52,000 yuan. First, I'll clear those debts, he thought. Checking his phone for a bank notification, he reminded himself of the 100,000 yuan he still owed Lu Yuhang. When his family went bankrupt, all his so-called friends had disappeared without a word. But Yuhang had helped him without hesitation in his time of need. Just then his roommate, who was brushing his teeth, noticed him. He asked where Shun had been the previous night, saying he hadn't come back to the dorm. He also asked if Shun had seen the messages in the class group chat. There was going to be a class dinner that night. Was he planning to attend? Shun checked the class group chat and muttered about Zhangping. Apparently Zhangping had bought a car, and Shun suspected he was the one who had asked the class monitor to organize the dinner. If I go, it'll just be to watch his little show. How disgusting, Shun thought. But if I don't go, I'll lose the 200 yuan class fee. He turned to his friend and told him, you all go, I'm not going. Just then a message popped up on his phone. It was from Yu Hang asking Shin to come to the dinner to relax and have a few drinks. Right after that, a system notification appeared assigning a new task. The host would receive 1 million yuan exclusively. For investment, the requirement was to invest the full amount within a week. The reward, all income from any commercial activity, would be doubled. Is this a business-related task? Shin wondered. It came at the perfect moment. I was just thinking about what to do with all this money sitting in my account. I need a legitimate income source. He remembered Yu Hang's bar was under renovation. Maybe I could invest in his bar. Could be fun. Seeing another message from Yu Hang urging him to come to the dinner, Shin finally replied saying he would come and asked Yu Hang to send the location. The scene then shifted to a private lounge at the Nanjing restaurant. Inside, a guy was sitting beside a girl with his hand casually resting on her shoulder. He asked who else they were waiting for and mentioned he was starving. His name was Lin Guangyao. Another man in a suit seated on a nearby sofa asked if all the important people had already arrived. This was Xie Haijie. Beside him sat Zhao Zhenggang, and standing with a drink in his hand was none other than Li Yuhang. Yuhang told the others not to get impatient, pointing out there were fruits and snacks on the table. They could grab something while they waited. Shun would be there soon. Guangyao scoffed. He muttered that Shin's family was supposed to be bankrupt and he no longer belonged in their circle. Why had Yuhang invited him? Yuhang answered firmly, since he was the one footing the bill tonight, no one should complain. He added that Shun was his lifelong friend. It wasn't the same as the others. Guangyao then called his cousin and asked why his girlfriend hadn't arrived yet. Haijie, his cousin, replied that she was stuck in traffic and would be there in about 10 minutes. Guangyao, wearing a frustrated expression, thought to himself that his cousin's family had always depended on his. If it weren't for me, they wouldn't even be at this gathering. He wondered how his cousin had landed such an amazing girlfriend, especially in that tight skirt and white blouse, an office temptation no man can resist. He smirked inwardly. They're not even married. Maybe I'll get a chance. Just then Shin arrived and apologized for being late. Yuhang asked what had delayed him and Shin explained there had been heavy traffic. Guangyao scoffed again. Did he come by taxi? Everyone else drove their luxury cars and he took a cab. No wonder he got stuck in traffic. He sarcastically told Shin how lucky he was to have a personal driver. Soon after, a woman entered and apologized for the delay. She was Haijie's girlfriend Chan Na. Haijie introduced her and mentioned she worked at Yao Yao dealership. If anyone wanted to buy a car, she was the one to contact. Inwardly he thought that, even if he couldn't outshine the others with money, at least his girlfriend was more attractive. Chan Na recognized Shun immediately. He's the one who picked up his car yesterday, she thought, but he didn't greet me, so I'll pretend this is our first meeting. About 40 minutes later, Yuhang addressed the group. He said he wanted to upgrade the bar he was working on and invited them to invest and grow the business together. The estimated cost was 24 million yuan and he was offering 30% of the shares for an investment of around 700,000 yuan. He asked them what they thought, but the room fell silent. Guangyao thought to himself that Li Xiao's family earned tens of millions annually. Does he really need our help to raise 700,000? Maybe his last investment failed and his father cut him off. Haijie thought he couldn't participate even if he wanted to. He would need 2 years just to save that kind of money. Zhao Zhenggang frowned. We came here to eat, not to invest. This isn't like Li Xiao at all. Seeing the silent room, Yuhang felt bitter. These were the same people who always took advantage of his generosity, always happy to eat and drink at his expense, and never hesitated to ask for money when they were in trouble. Yet now, when someone needed their help, they all acted deaf. With a disappointed look, he asked if everyone had gone silent just because dinner was over. Couldn't someone at least say something? Guangyao finally spoke up, saying he didn't think they were at the stage of needing investment yet. If it was just a liquidity issue, they could all chip in a few thousand yuan to help open the place. When it started making money, Yuhang could pay them back. Haijie chimed in, saying that becoming partners halfway wouldn't be fair to Yuhang. That way, when the bar made money, he wouldn't have to split it with others unnecessarily. He looked around and said that everyone could agree with that. Zhenggang remained silent but thought, we've all seen Li Xiao's failed ventures, the hot pot place and the KTV were both disasters. Now he wants to open a bar, sounds like throwing money away. Yuhang looked around and realized he had misjudged them. He had wanted to partner with his so-called friends to do something meaningful, but if they only saw it as borrowing and debt, then it wasn't worth it. He looked especially disappointed with Guangyao. I clearly said investment and partnership, he thought, but you turned it into a loan. Guangyao waved it all off and told everyone to keep eating and drinking. He said there was no point listening to such nonsense. Shin quietly observed it all. I've seen their true faces ever since my family went bankrupt, he thought. Li Yuhang, why do you still hope for anything from these people? They're just parasites living off their family names. Yuhang pushed back his chair and said if they just wanted to have fun then fine, he was done. Shin asked what if I invest the 700,000 yuan. The room turned. Guangyao burst out laughing, asking Shin not to joke. It's not like we just met, he said mockingly. Shingang patted Shin on the shoulder and told him to go wash his face and clear his head. Li Xiao wasn't in the mood for nonsense. Haijie with a patronizing tone advised Shin not to speak beyond his means. It's not just about ambition, he said, you have to know your limits. Guangyao added with a sneer, do you remember how you even got here? If you want, I'll pay for your round-trip taxi fare. Chan Na, watching this unfold, thought to herself, Mr. Shun wants to invest 30% and everyone thinks he's showing off. Just yesterday he bought a car for 600,000 yuan. Isn't it normal for someone like that to invest 700,000? But as an outsider she thought it might not be appropriate to jump in and defend him just yet. Shin turned to Yuhang and calmly said that he had already transferred the money. Yuhang looked down at his phone. The moment he saw the transfer his hands started to tremble. Guangyao, noticing this, asked what was wrong. Yuhang showed him the phone screen. Everyone went silent. Even Chun Na was stunned. Did the situation just change? One of the guys asked what the message said. Guangyao with a trembling voice told them that he had some things to take care of at home and couldn't stay, saying they'd meet another day. Haijie asked Guangyao what had happened, and Guangyao replied that his uncle and aunt were looking for him. Confused, Haijie said they hadn't called him. Frustrated, Guangyao thought to himself that his cousin had no tact, but it wasn't worth arguing over. What really annoyed him was Shun. If Shun had so much money, why did he take a taxi? It was clearly just to show off, and he had stolen all the attention tonight. Meanwhile, Zhenggang also saw Yuhang's phone and wondered why Guangyao's attitude had shifted so much after seeing the message. He left the room too, followed by the remaining members one by one. Clueless, Haijie asked why everyone was leaving. Chan, who was also leaving, told him they were just following the others. Once the two of them stepped out, Haijie asked how she knew what was going on, since they were only checking transfer records and didn't even see the message. Chun calmly explained that Shun had bought an M9 car yesterday and paid in cash. Haijie was shocked and asked if it was true, to which Chun replied that she wouldn't lie and even had the purchase contract on her phone. Hearing this, Haijie shouted, not to criticize her, he claimed, but because if she knew Shin was rich, she should have told him right away. He said she hadn't acted properly and started to lecture her about what to do next time. Chun cut him off, asking what next time, and told him that today she had realized what kind of person he really was. It was her bad luck, and she told him never to contact her again, broke up with him and walked away. Now only Shun and Yuhang remained in the room, while Shin poured himself a drink. Yuhang said that if he had known Shin was that rich, he wouldn't have organized the gathering. It had been a waste of money. Shun replied that now Yuhang knew. The others weren't trustworthy. They were fine for fun, but not dependable. Shun then asked about the bar idea, saying he wanted to be involved in planning, even as a minority shareholder. Yuhang shared his plans for the bar's decor and operations for the next 30 minutes. While Shun offered some business ideas, impressed, Yuhang said Shin hadn't wasted his college years and had a great business vision. Shun modestly called it commercial talent, but added that neither of them had time to manage the place daily. They needed a manager. An hour later, Shin received a message from Chan saying the car he reserved had arrived and he could come on Friday to pay the balance. Shin told her not to rush and asked if she was free the next night, wanting to ask questions about the car in person. Chan, wearing a nightdress in her room, saw the message and wondered what was going on with her and Shen. Meanwhile, Shin walked down the street, thinking that Manhwa was his only money tree now, and since refunds were limited, he needed to expand and make the most of the system. He texted Manhwa, saying they'd meet tomorrow at the 4th-floor restaurant in the mall. He thought Chun Na was beautiful and had an amazing body, and spending money on someone like her wasn't a waste. The next day, Chan sat at the restaurant Shin mentioned, wondering if she had come too early since he hadn't arrived yet. A group of men, including an older man, entered. Zhang Xianyong, her general manager at the press dealership, spotting Chun, Zhang thought about how he never had the chance to flirt with her at the store, but now he finally could. He told his employees to go elsewhere as he had other business. In the elevator, one employee asked if Chun would agree to Mr. Zhang. Another said he didn't think so. Chun didn't seem like that kind of woman. A third disagreed, saying no girl ate alone like that without a reason. Maybe she was trying to be noticed. Haijie, overhearing all this, wondered who Chun was meeting casually. Back at the restaurant, Zhang approached Chen's table, said it was a coincidence, and asked to join her. Chun replied that she had a date with a friend. Zhang thought she was playing hard to get and reminded her that he was her superior, so it didn't matter if she had company. Shin firmly asked him to keep his distance and reminded him that he had a family and shouldn't behave like this. Zhang replied that if that was the issue, he'd get a divorce. Meanwhile, Haijia, seeing them together, grew angry and jealous. Did she dump him for someone else? He thought he wasn't inferior. He made 400,000 to 500,000 yuan a year and owned a car worth 300,000. Furious, he barged in, accused them of betraying him, and called them traitor dogs. Chun was confused and asked what he was talking about. Zhang asked who Haijia was. Haijia said he should be the one asking that, then punched Zhang and raged. Zhang demanded to know who dared hit him. Just then, Shin arrived and saw the chaos. Noticing Zhang on the floor, Shin thought if it weren't for that fat man, he might have been the one knocked down. He grabbed Chen's hand and told her to ignore them. They left together. In the car, Chun explained that she had only been with Haijia for 2 weeks, and after the dinner, she realized how awful his character was and ended things that night. Shun said it was good she found out early and reassured her the matter was over. But Chen, with a sad face, said it wasn't over. Zhang Xianyong, the man who got punched, was her boss. Now that he'd been beaten without reason, she didn't know how he would treat her. Shin told her a boss like that didn't deserve her, and that she should change jobs. Chun replied that it wasn't easy. Switching stores meant starting over and losing the customers she'd worked hard to build. She admitted she was tired of sales and dreamed of opening a small cafe, one where she could open or close whenever she liked, depending on her mood, but opening a cafe cost between 300,000 to 400,000 yuan, and she didn't know when she'd save that much. Shin asked if she really wanted a cafe and told her not to worry. What if someone was willing to invest? He thought that besides the 700,000 from Yuhang, he had 300,000 in exclusive investment funds. Casually, Chun replied that if someone really invested, she'd resign immediately and work for them without question. She assumed Shin wasn't serious, but Shen, seeing her expression, told her to resign tomorrow. He would invest 300,000 yuan and she would work for him. Looking at her, Shun saw an affinity mark of 65 above her head and thought to himself that he had worried about winning her favor, but now a new money tree had arrived. Chen looked at Shin with a serious expression and asked if he was joking. Shin, dead serious, replied that he wasn't. He asked, "What's up? Don't you want to work for me?" Then he explained that once the cafe was up and running, he'd pay her 12,000 yuan a month, plus bonuses. If the cafe did well for 3 months, he would even give her a 200,000 yuan car. He added that the car she was currently driving was a bit old. It was time for an upgrade. Chen was taken aback. No sales? Pressure, work 3 months and get a car, she thought. That would push my annual income past 300,000 yuan. Then the thought struck her, was Shin planning to keep her around? She told him it wasn't worth doing this just for her sake. Even though the conditions were tempting, she didn't want to become a caged canary, especially not a third wheel. Shin smiled and told her not to overthink it. He explained that he was just planning to open a chain of cafes, and this first one was a pilot project. Their relationship, he added, would remain strictly professional, just boss and employee. Hearing his words, Chen's face flushed slightly. She said she would think about the offer. Just then, Shin received a message from Minwi asking if he was free that evening. She suggested they go out for a cold drink. Looking at the message, Shin wondered how Minwi still had so much energy. He texted her back, saying they could meet for a drink, but they should pace themselves a bit. He then turned to Chin and told her he had something to do and was heading out, asking her to let him know soon once she made up her mind. Later, Shin arrived at the Grand Magnate Hotel and entered room 8. Minwi came up from behind and hugged him tightly. Telling him that she missed him, Shin replied that he missed her too, but Minwi then paused and asked why he smelled like another woman. Shin blinked, confused. Do I really smell like that? He wondered. Then it hit him. It must have been from being in Chen's car, where her perfume had lingered. Minwi pushed him back slightly, her tone sharp as she asked whether he had been with another woman behind her back. Shin hugged her again and assured her that he only had eyes for her. He told her that he had gone to the dealership that day to handle car paperwork and maybe he had picked up the scent from some of the salesgirls. He added that, as she knew, the girls at the dealership wore a lot of perfume. Minwi calmed down a little and told Shin that next time he went out with another girl, he should let her know in advance and to keep some distance from salesgirls in the future. Shin agreed. Inwardly, he thought to himself that it wasn't a matter of cheating. The system's task was to spend money on the opposite gender and earn it back through system refunds. He couldn't rely on just one money tree. Minwi then told him she was going to shower first, but Shin stopped her, pulling her closer and beginning to kiss her neck with a trembling voice. She said she hadn't showered yet, but Shin told her he liked her natural scent. She sat on the bed and a romantic scene unfolded between them. one left for the imagination. 3 hours later, Shin got out of bed. Thinking to himself that Minwi had far more energy than Shou, she looked happy, but he was exhausted. He saw the affinity mark hovering over her head 90 that made him pause. I don't get it, he thought. How does this kind of activity boost her affinity so much? Last time, it had jumped to 86 in one night, now it had reached 90. The system then notified him, host has a member of the opposite gender with an affinity level above 90, reward granted, 1 lottery ticket worth 1 million yuan. Additional reward, skill unlocked, ruthless power. Shin's eyes lit up, a 1 million yuan lottery ticket. That kind of money would make it much easier to explain away sudden wealth. He could use it to pay off his family's debts. The new skill, ruthless power, made him think, maybe one day I'll be able to truly dominate. Looking at Minwi, he thought to himself, sorry Minwi, I'm about to unleash my true power. From now on, you won't be the one controlling me, I'll be the one in control. Activating the skill, Shin felt the rush of power coursing through him. What an amazing reward for reaching affinity level 90, he thought, but getting another girl to that level, that won't be easy. He recalled that Li Xiao had barely surpassed 60. Shin, with her long legs and black stockings, had broken past 60 as well, but getting either of them to Minhui's level would take time. Still, he wasn't worried. For now, the important thing was to test out his new power. He returned to Minwi and started another romantic conversation. During their talk, Minwi began to notice something different about Shin. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Shin lay on her bed, on the phone with her friend Qian. She told her that a guy had offered her 300,000 yuan to help her open a store and promised to give her a 200,000 yuan car after 3 months. Then she asked, did this guy want to keep her, even though he already had a girlfriend? Qian asked if she had run into a scammer. Shin assured her that she had seen him a few times. Last time, he had even bought a car with her. How old is he? Qian asked. I thought your dealership buyers were usually middle-aged men. Shin replied that he was 21. Qian, who was cutting her nails on the other end of the line, was surprised. A young man, already driving a luxury car. She asked if he was handsome. Chen admitted he was a little handsome. Qian laughed. He's going to spend 300,000 yuan to help you open a store and give you a 200,000 yuan car. He's rich, handsome, and young. What more could you want? Chen walked over to the window, looking at the glowing buildings under the night sky. He's 5 or 6 years younger than me, she said. So what? Qian replied, they say a woman 3 years older is like hugging a gold bar. In this case, you're hugging 2 gold bars, but he has a girlfriend, Chen murmured. Qian scoffed, a girlfriend isn't a wife. Don't tell me you're being that old-fashioned. Besides, in a situation like this, you could easily take her place. Chen was startled. What are you saying? Qian laughed and teased her. If you're too indecisive, pass that little millionaire to me. I'll put up with everything for you. You have a boyfriend. Chen reminded her. What about him? Qian said casually. If a man like that offered to keep me, I'd be single in a second. Then she told Chen they'd talk later. Her boyfriend had just arrived. Chen hung up the call, still thinking about Chen. Meanwhile, back at the hotel, Minwi and Shin were lying on the bed. Minwi looked at Shin and asked why he was different this time. With a smile, Shin responded, asking if she meant stronger. Minwi didn't reply, but thought to herself that in just over 40 minutes they had already done it twice. Shin moved closer and said that since she liked it, how about one more time? Hearing his words, Minwi asked if he could still go for it. Shin replied with a teasing smile, saying he remembered she studied dance and suggested she take the lead this time. She shyly answered that she didn't know how, but Shin told her not knowing wasn't an excuse and that learning comes with practice. Minwi playfully glared at him and called him evil. As another round of passion followed, the next day after Minwi had returned to college, Shin remained in bed, thinking that since there were no classes they could sleep in a bit longer, unaware that Minwi had already left. Suddenly he remembered the lottery ticket the system had mentioned and rushed to check it. To his astonishment, he had matched all 6 red numbers and 1 blue number. He had won the jackpot of 6.8 million yuan. Bursting with excitement, he decided to share the good news with his parents. Ever since their bankruptcy, the family had been struggling, so he rushed home. Once there, he called for his mother, who told him not to shout and disturb the neighbors. Shin asked where his father was and urged her to call him quickly, saying he had something important to say. When his father arrived, he asked if Shin had gotten into trouble again. Shin dismissed the idea, saying this was good news, and urged him to sit down. Beaming, he showed them the lottery ticket and revealed he had won 6.8 million yuan. His parents, stunned, initially dismissed it as a result of stress, telling him to focus on his studies. But Shin urged them to compare the ticket with the winning numbers on his phone. His father, upon seeing it carefully, was shocked and told his wife they had really won. His mother, equally stunned, confirmed it, and Shin explained that even after a 20% tax deduction, they'd still have over 5 million yuan. Enough to pay off debts and improve their lives. His mother, full of joy, said Shin's name would be honored in the family merit book and declared that they were going out to celebrate. Shin, still thoughtful, told them he was in his 3rd year and wanted to start a business to gain experience. His father supported the idea, suggesting Shin manage the money himself, but set aside some as a backup. Shin said he'd only take 1 million yuan and let them use the rest, and they agreed. Meanwhile, at Shin Na's car dealership, inside the manager's office, Manager Zhang, his face bruised, asked her if she knew why he called her, blaming her for the beating he received from her ex. Shin calmly responded that she had nothing to do with it and had broken up with him long ago. Zhang gave her a smug smile, saying every problem had roots and he'd use this as leverage to win her over. Chen reminded him that she had told him about her date the day before, but he insisted on staying. Zhang, with a malicious grin, told her she had left her post and was being suspended from customer service for the month. Chen protested, saying she had asked for permission, but Zhang laughed and reminded her that he was the general manager and made the decisions. He thought to himself that suspending her meant she'd lose her commissions and only earn 1,200 yuan, barely enough for rent. Turning away, Chen told him that acting like a mediocre manager had gone to his head and declared she would quit if necessary. As Zhang shouted at her not to leave and to think it over, Chen thought about Chen, how different and calm he was, and how working for him was already an opportunity. She told Zhang there was nothing to think about, she was quitting. Half an hour later, Chen texted Shin asking if his offer still stood. Shin replied with congratulations for escaping that hell and said she could start checking locations whenever she had time. As Shin walked down the street, he smiled at her message, thinking it saved him the effort of finding another project for the remaining 300,000 yuan in the investment task. Later, Shin arrived at a room and called out to Professor Lee, who was lifting a box. She greeted him and apologized for the trouble, saying she needed help moving her office and the class monitor was on leave. Shin told her he was free and happy to help. Pointing to the bookshelf, he asked if they had to move everything, and she confirmed with a smile, explaining that the desk and cabinet were too heavy for her alone. As she tried to reach for a book on top of the cabinet, she told Shin to remove the books first so they wouldn't fall. Shin moved behind her to help, and in the process, his weapon touches her, prompting her to think that they were much closer than that one time and wonder if Shin might truly have feelings for her. Professor Lee said it was already done. 2 guys arrived to help her move things. One of them glanced at her and wondered why her face was so red. Shin stepped in, ordering them to hurry and move the stuff, directing them to take the filing cabinet to the office next door, and they nodded and got to work. As Professor Lee walked away, she thought to herself how fortunate it was that the students arrived a few seconds late. Any earlier and it would have been embarrassing. Shin was getting bolder by the minute. What happened at home was already enough, and now he was doing something stupid in the office. Yet despite herself, she wondered why she felt a little excited about it, quickly rejecting the thought he was her student after all. Meanwhile, Shin noticed the professor's affection level had jumped to 71 and wondered if that moment had really boosted her feelings. Smiling, he thought it wasn't that he was too long, but rather the professor had seriously curvy hips. He wouldn't have gotten that far with a flatter girl. Still, he hadn't expected her affection to rise, and maybe he should visit her more often to nurture the relationship. On Saturday, 800 meters from the college's south gate, inside a cafe, a girl sitting at a table told Zhang Peng she heard he bought a car for 280,000 yuan in cash. Another girl beside her commented that he hadn't even graduated yet and was already driving a car, placing him above 99% of their classmates. Zhang Peng, sitting across from them, thought about how Minwei had pretended to be pure and rejected him, yet with his credentials, plenty of girls would be lining up. He told them that some people didn't even care about a car, to which the brown-haired girl reacted with surprise, asking what kind of family could afford to not care. The black-haired girl laughed, saying some people didn't get it. Even after working 3 to 5 years, they couldn't afford a car like that. Zhang's face turned red as he noticed Chin Na sitting far away and thought she was way too beautiful, with legs made for play all year long, had even traded 10 years of his life for a girl like that. A car then pulled up, catching the girl's attention, and one asked Zhan what kind of car it was. Seeing it, he told her it was a Yao Yao leading M9. The brown-haired girl spotted Shin stepping out of it, and Zhan was stunned. How was Shin driving that car when his family was supposed to be bankrupt? Shin entered the cafe, greeted by Chen, which shocked Zhan even more. That gorgeous girl was waiting for Shin. Shin told Shin the cafe owner had just texted her and would arrive any minute, asking about the car, and Shin casually replied it wasn't bad. The brown-haired girl whispered to Jean that Shin and his crew were acting weird, and Jean bitterly thought Shin had just broken up and was already hooking up with a beauty from outside the college. A beautiful woman then approached Shin's table, apologizing for the delay. She had picked up her son. She introduced herself as Lin Yuchong, the cafe owner, and greeted Shin, commenting on how young he looked. Shin replied that they were all around 20 and suggested they sit and talk. Lin explained briefly that her business wasn't doing great, though its location near the school brought a steady flow of customers, but with family issues and caring for her son, she had to transfer the cafe, setting the transfer fee at 300,000 yuan. Shin thought that although he had 300,000 to invest, he needed to reserve 50,000 for seed capital and Chin Na's salary. He offered her 250,000 yuan upfront without haggling. Lin considered it a bit lower than her expected 270,000, but seeing Shin's determination, she decided it was a fine deal and asked if they could sign the agreement and transfer the payment that day. Shin agreed. Lin then instructed her server Xiao Qiu to show Mr. Shin around, calling him boss. Shin told her to just show Miss Chin Na around, as she'd handle everything. He wouldn't be coming by often. Overhearing this, the brown-haired girl whispered to her friend how outrageous it was that they closed a deal for 250,000 yuan in just a few minutes. The other girl remarked that Shin obviously took the cafe because of the beauty beside him, frustrating Jean even more. Lin received a call and excused herself. While she was away, Chin Na leaned in and told Shin that Mrs. Lin was the wife of Xing Xianyong, the same man who had fought with Haijie at the restaurant and was also her boss at the car dealership. Shin thought it was quite the coincidence and found it despicable that someone with such a beautiful wife would still harass his employees. He vowed he wouldn't stand for it. Chin, looking sad, said she had chat records of Xing Xianyong harassing and threatening her, and wanted to expose him after getting her salary, but hesitated to tell Mrs. Lin, who was kind. She was afraid of hurting her. Shin, sipping his juice, said that wouldn't be wise. When Shin asked why, he explained that once the records went public, Zhang would know who leaked them. As a man over 40, unemployed, and with a family to support, he might do something awful. Shin assured her he'd handle it without affecting her, and Shin thanked him. Shin then informed her he had transferred 250,000 yuan to Mrs. Lin and sent her 50,000 yuan, of which 24,000 was her salary for the past 2 months, and the rest was seed capital for the business. A system message then popped up, announcing that the host had used 1 million yuan in exclusive investment funds to complete the initial investment task, raising his investment level from beginner to junior investor. Another message followed, stating that a perfect life should have a more diversified industry, and then another revealed the host would receive 10 million yuan in exclusive investment funds to expand investments, with rewards including tripled investment income and a mysterious industry upon completion. Shin was stunned. He hadn't expected the system to surprise him again. Now he had 10 million yuan to invest, and the promise of a mysterious industry made him even more curious. Lin returned from her call, congratulating Shin on the payment and saying it was a pleasure working with him, hoping to see him again. As Shin shook her hand, he thought her hand was as soft as if it had no bones, yet had a meaty touch. Was this the charm of a wife? He smiled and replied that they'd see each other again. Half an hour later, Chin Na, along with Shin, arrived at a restaurant and sat at their allocated table. Chin Na glanced around and asked Shin if he came to such an expensive place often. Shin replied that he didn't visit often, but today was a good day to celebrate their partnership. Deep down, though, he found her simply irresistible. Any normal man would feel the same. Shin then asked why she didn't sit next to him. She agreed and moved closer, wrapping his arm around her waist. He told her to stay a little closer, but in his mind, he was thinking, I spent 300,000 on the cafe and pay 12,000 in salary every month. It's time I earned some interest back. Chin Na's face flushed. In her thoughts, she reflected that in this world, there was no love or effort without reason. Does he really want to make money off the cafe? Even Lin Yuchong said just keeping the books balanced is already an achievement. As Shin rested his hand on her backside, she thought to herself, all I've got to offer is this. When Shin leaned in closer, she quickly told him the waiter was coming and asked him to stop. Shin simply responded that the service here was slow anyway and then started to kiss her, his hands still on her waist. She tried to resist and told him to stop. 10 minutes later, a waiter approached and informed Shin that the dishes were being prepared. Upon hearing this, Chin Na quickly pulled away from Shin's arms and mentioned that someone was coming. The waiter then served the food and left the room. Shin pointed out that the dishes were the restaurant's specials. Chin Na looked at him, thinking that he was actually quite handsome. His only flaw, she mused, was that he was a bit of a rascal. Even with such a beautiful woman beside him, he still behaved like this in public with a blush on her face. She thought, it's a shame he's on his own boat now, there's no point in dwelling on that. 40 minutes later, a lady at the billing counter told Shin the total came to 2,650 yuan. Shin thought to himself, even though this meal cost 2,650, the system refunds me triple, so I earned 5,300. Making money is as easy as that. Shin Na, watching him, thought, one meal equals the commission from selling a car. For the rich, spending 2,000 is like spending 20 for me. While they walked down the street, Chen Na told Shin that she wanted to return to the cafe to talk with Xiaoqiu and understand the situation better. She planned to start working there tomorrow and wanted to get familiar with things as soon as possible. Shin reminded her that it was already 8:30 and Xiaoqiu usually left by 9. Going now would disturb her and might earn her resentment. He advised her to go home, get some rest, and come back tomorrow. She agreed. After they arrived at Shin Na's place, she stepped out of Shin's car and told him, you worked hard today. Tomorrow after work, I'll give you the report, so goodbye. Shin got out of the car and said he was feeling a bit thirsty. He asked if he could come upstairs for some water. It was fine, wasn't it? Chen Na hesitated and said she didn't think it was very appropriate, but internally, she wondered if it was too soon. What had happened at the restaurant was already her limit. Shin, noticing her hesitation, asked suspiciously if there was another man at her place. Awkwardly, she denied it, saying she had already broken up with Haijia. Shin, satisfied, said, then no problem, I'll just have some water. What's inappropriate about that? She asked him if he was really just going to have water and leave. Shin smiled slyly and replied, of course, but if you want me to stay over, I can. Chen Na began to worry after seeing his expression, wondering what was about to happen. After Shin entered her room, the two ended up in a serious romantic entanglement. Meanwhile, downstairs in a black car, Haijie thought to himself, Chen Na probably quit for me first. I need to earn her forgiveness, even if it's just to be friends again, then I'll work hard to win her back. He stepped out of the car with a bouquet of flowers. Seeing the lights off at Chen Na's place, he assumed she wasn't home. He decided to leave the roses at her door, thinking, roses mean I'll love you forever. This feeling won't change. She's so smart. She'll know they're from me. But when he reached her door, he was stunned to hear romantic sounds coming from inside. Shocked, he thought she said she had nothing to do with Xing Xianyong, but they're already together. He shouted for Xing Xianyong to come out, not realizing Shin was the one inside. Shin, hearing the voice, recognized it immediately. That voice. It's Haijia, that idiot already broke up with Chan. Why is he still getting involved? What's his problem? Chen Na turned to Shin and told him she heard something outside. Someone was knocking on the door. Shin dismissed it, claiming it must be someone knocking on the next room. They continued undisturbed, while outside, Haijia collapsed in defeat. She was completely devoured. Now I have no chance, he thought. In a low murmur, he whispered, I should at least tell her to use protection. With that, he left. Guys, after hearing to Haijia thoughts, from next video I want to change Haijia name to shit. Comment your thoughts on it. Shin and Chen Na continued their night together until morning. The next day, as Shin lay in bed, he smelled something delicious. He saw Chen Na cooking and thought to himself, she's so considerate, very different from the vibe Min we gave at the hotel. This kind of warmth only happens at home. A hotel just doesn't have it. Suddenly, a system message appeared. Task: create better living conditions for yourself and the woman. Objective: buy a property of at least 100 square meters for Chen Na within 24 hours. Reward: the amount of the purchased property will be doubled. Bonus reward: host will receive a mysterious property. Shin smiled. The system just turned one of my thoughts into a task. With the system's generosity, this property surely won't be modest. Maybe the mysterious property is a huge mansion, perfect for pool parties. Looks like I need to meet more high-quality women. My chances of getting surprises like this will increase. Chen Na turned and asked if he was already up. Breakfast would be ready in 2 minutes. Shin stepped out of bed and leaned against the kitchen door, wondering what reward he'd receive if Chen Na's affection level reached 90. With a smile, he asked her if there was only breakfast today. Walking up behind her, he hugged her from behind. Her cheeks flushed, and she asked, still not enough after all that happened last night? Besides, it's daytime. He replied playfully, you make your breakfast, and I'll have mine. Then he asked, if you've got nothing to do this morning, let's go buy a house. I'll gift it to you. Chen Na stood frozen, completely surprised by his words.